Hello, everyone. I am Bonnie Low-Kramen, and I want to welcome everyone to Heads Together. It is Wednesday, March 24th. It is Equal Pay Day. So many things to talk about today. Such an exciting show ahead. Thank you, Jen, for being here. Hi, Jen.
It's my pleasure. Hi, Bon. It's exciting day.
Big day. So, because in honor of Women's History Month and Equal Pay Day today, I hope you'll notice I'm wearing my Ruth Bader Ginsburg collar here so that we can channel the strength. There's a lot happening for women right now in our workplace. We've been talking about it all month regarding Women's History Month. Some of you may not know what Equal Pay Day is. Equal Pay Day, March 24th, refers to the date that, imagine in 2020, a man's salary, whatever a man made in 2020, it would take a woman, the average woman, all the way till March 24th of 2021 to make what a man did in just 2020. And that March 24th is really about Caucasian women. It's even longer for Latina women, even longer for Black women. It's a little less for Asian women, as far as I know. The statistic I heard is that if we keep going at this rate, it's going to take about 202 years to get to equity. Is that okay with you, Jen?
No, not at all.
Not at all. No. So we have to do something about it. And we've got two people joining us today who are going to be helping us do something about it. Before I get to introduce them, though, I want to welcome our viewers from all over the world. Hi, Lynn. Welcome to Heads Together. For anyone coming into the show, please write down your questions, your comments about today's subject, which is about women in the workplace, especially women office workers. Mm-hmm. So some of you may be of a certain age, like Jen and I are, who remember the film from 1980 called 9 to 5. Jen, do you remember that film?
Yes, I do.
And what do you recall from that?
It was upsetting. I mean, I was young. I won't tell you how old I was. I was young. It was upsetting. It was funny, yeah. But it was upsetting, and I wasn't really understanding why this was going on.
So could you put up the poster? Welcome, Misty and Michelle and Denise. Good to see all of you today. So we're putting up the poster from the 1980s film 9 to 5. In 1980, it was a very big deal. This film starred Jane Fonda, Lily Tomlin, and Dolly Parton. It was the highest grossing comedy of the year. It was a very big deal that year. And it also starred Dabney Coleman. Jane Fonda was a key person to getting this film made. I heard a story, and our guest today can confirm this, that Jane Fonda, at one of the planning meetings, actually asked a group of office workers, at the time called secretaries, have you ever thought about killing your boss? That was the question she asked them. Have you ever thought about killing your boss? And that was part of, the genesis of this comedy. So, all right. So fast forward 9 to 5, that film was 41 years ago. And here we are in 2021. And some of us would believe that things have improved. And some of us would say they haven't changed enough. Mm-hmm. We have two people here who know a lot about that. For the last 3 years, they've been working on a new documentary. The documentary is called Still Working 9 to 5. It's Not Funny Anymore. And we have with us today the the producers and directors of this new documentary. And we're going to be showing a short clip in just a moment, but I want to tell you a little bit about Camille Hardman and Gary Lane. Camille Hardman, director and producer of this documentary. She's been producing documentaries and reality TV series in her native Australia and in LA for a very long time. And she happens to be coming us from LA today. She started in TV in Sydney, Australia, almost 15 years ago, making animal and travel documentaries before she turned to human interest stories, thankfully. And she is the co-creator of the show called Restored. It's now in its 6th season on HGTV and DIY. So she's the one responsible. I'm so addicted to HGTV. She is joined today by Gary Lane. Gary and his identical twin brother is not here with us today, unfortunately, Larry. But Gary Lane is also a producer and a director of this new documentary. He and his twin brother grew up in Goldsboro, North Carolina, but now are based in Hollywood. And they are both documentary filmmakers. Their debut documentary was called Hollywood to Dollywood. It won 25 documentary awards in total. And it featured 15 original Dolly Parton songs. So I have a feeling that is partly what attracted them to this project. But of course, not all. They're just passionate about this documentary, and for good reason. So are we. So welcome to everybody on the call. If you have any comments, questions as we're going along, please put them in the chat, and Jen's going to help us. Mm-hmm. Jen, could you please roll the clip we have from about this documentary?
You got it.
Feminism means having agency. As women, we've got so much more to do.
9 to 5. With 9 to 5, the three of us were just doing good things for women especially.
Rise up for the women of the world.
Women want safety, equity, and dignity.
Equal pay for equal work.
Paid leave,
Childcare. Stand up for yourselves.
Demand respect. Zero tolerance on sexual harassment.
Know the laws. Know your lives.
All of these movements are together. They can't be taken apart. In unity, there is strength.
We want equality of rights under the law.
Wait a damn minute. I'm not going to take it anymore.
I'm not going anywhere. I'm here.
#choose to challenge. Can we please welcome Camille Hardman and Gary Lane? Hey
Bonnie,
there.
hi, Jen.
Hey. Welcome to Heads Together. We're so happy you're here. The documentary looks amazing. This film has the full support of Lily Tomlin, Jane Fonda, and Dolly Parton. Camille, let's start with you. How did this wonderful thing happen? How did it come together?
So thank you so much for having us on Heads Together. Both, Gary and I are very excited about being on your show. So it was a fantastic sort of culmination of things, how this happened. I received a call from Gary who said, I really want to do a documentary about 9 to 5 and the history of 9 to 5. And I thought, wow, that sounds fantastic. At that time, I was in the middle of Restored. I was on a very grueling shoot, and I was like, yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure if I can do it or be a part of it. And he was like, well, we're off to London soon for the stage show that was happening on the West End. And I remember going on the weekend and having a look at the history of 9 to 5 and seeing that it came out of the 9 to 5 women's organization and, the whole history. And I was like, oh, there is a lot more to this than being a fan documentary. And I was like, this can culminate, the whole sort of scenario of, the women's movement, equality, ended up being really, really important for me. And I thought, I want to be a part of this. And there ended up being a break. And I said to Gary, you know what? This is it. I want to be a part of this with you. Let's do it.
Oh, that's amazing. Gary, talk to us from your point of view. How did you get the project, and tell us how it all happened?
Well, actually, in 2018, they started talking about a sequel, about a new 9 to 5 sequel. So that kind of got me thinking about the original film, and I watched the TV show, and it had been a musical. And I was like, first of all, how many films have done that? They've got a song, they've got a movement, they've got a musical, they've got a TV show, they've got a sequel about to happen with all of the originals. So that was my initial thought with Camille, and reaching out to her and just asking her the best way to go about trying to capture 40 years of a documentary. It's not easy to do. It's a long span you've got to cover there. So that's when she came back and she's like, I've looked even further. There was a whole movement that it ignited. And that's kind of, I always say, when the fandom and the feminism with her came together, it kind of made this perfect project that we are creating.
Interesting. I told you this, that I love the tagline. It's still working 9 to 5. It's not funny anymore. And I remember when I first saw the film in 1980, and Karen Nussbaum, one of the founders of the movement, the 9 to 5 movement, called it a farce. It was a farce. It was funny, over the top comedy, these cartoon characters. But yet I remember even thinking, really, is that the only way we can deal with abusive bosses, managers, is to string them up and poison them? And don't we have other options? And that's it. Is that going to be dealt with in the documentary, Gary? The bad behavior of executives.
Absolutely. And we've interviewed Dabney Coleman, who's 90. So we interviewed movie Mr. Hart. We interviewed musical Mr. Hart. So the male point of view is represented very well. But what we really wanted to show was the fact that all of these men are in this culture where they are given this power that they use. And even, present day, like I said, I just watched the morning show, and it shows you how this one high up, like your Richard Murdoch, basic guy. And then even if you look at Mitch McConnell and the government right now over the Senate, he squashes it right now in present day. He's sitting on the ERA bill to pass the 28th Amendment for equal rights. He's been sitting on it, all of this time. So all of this stuff is still happening. So when we can do a documentary like this, and even the movie, when you saw the movie, it had to be a comedy because they couldn't make it a drama and hit those specific targets. Or like Jane said, I probably wouldn't have went to see it anyway if it was me. So they had to bring them in and give them nuggets of truth, which is what me and Camille are doing. We're bringing in the fact that we've interviewed Dolly, we've interviewed Lily, Allison Janney, Jane Fonda. Come in and watch our film, but we're going to tell you what's still happening and what the real deal is.
Yeah. It's so timely right now. Absolutely. So Gary, you're a guy, and this profession back then was probably 99% female. And today in 2021, I'm here to tell you that it's 95 to 98% female. What did you learn about the women, the amazing women who do this work from the documentary?
I learned so much. We interviewed people, not just the celebrities. We interviewed people like Lily Ledbetter. So to hear her story was just so eye-opening to me. We interviewed a woman, her name is Zoe Nicholson, and she, in 1982, she did a fast for 30 days with 6 other women, 30 days before the 1982 vote was supposed to happen on the Equal Rights Amendment, just to raise awareness. So just to hear her struggles and what she did to fight for equality. And even the women Ellen Cassidy, who founded the 9 to 5 organization, for her to talk about the women that, were working with her, having to sew the boss's pants up while he was wearing them. And just when you hear these stories, you can't even imagine what that working environment had to be like for women. So that's why we put that into this documentary, to show that now, in 2016, we had Me Too, and we've got all these things that are making it better because we're calling these guys out and making them give an account. But you still have to continue to move the story and move the line forward. So that's what we're trying to do.
I hear you talking, and I feel really optimistic in light of some negative stuff that's been happening lately. I mean, Camille, you're from Australia, and what we've experienced in America this last year with the pandemic is that we've lost 5 million women in the workforce in the United States in this past year alone. And that the statistic I heard is that loss of 5 million women in the workforce, not all office workers, of course, but just 5 million women, brings us back to 1988. It brings us back to the numbers of 1988. Tell me, from your point of view, about the idea that it's Women's History Month. What do you feel about the 41 years that have gone by between when 9 to 5 was made and what's happening now that you see from your point of view?
I see a lot, a lot of things. I've just been in Australia for a year, and in the Prime Minister's office, it has just come out that there's been lack of equality, but there's also been a lot of sexual harassment that is now totally encompassing the whole news in Australia. It's all about what the Prime Minister knew, what was happening in, behind the scenes. I think, the fact that we are celebrating Equality Day today is or Equal Pay Day is really great, but it's nothing, a lot of things haven't changed. A lot of things have gone back. As you mentioned, women are only getting 80 cents to the dollar. Latin women are getting 53 cents to the dollar. African-American women are getting 61 cents to the dollar. I mean, this is horrific statistics, and it's going to take many years for things to change. The fact that America does not have maternity leave is appalling to me. In European Union, as well as Australia, as well as a lot of countries around the world, maternity leave and paternity leave are really important. And paternity leave can be just as important too, because it has to, if we're totally going to be equal, men have to get, paternity leave too. And until both of those things happen, it is just, I find it absolutely astounding. And then the other thing is, the federal pay in the United States, $7 and I think it's 45 cents.
$7.50 is minimum wage.
Yes, minimum wage, that's what I said. Yeah, $7.50. The fact that they can't, that is happening, and people aren't getting a fair wage as well. So not only are you getting paid a low amount, but you're getting, I find it astounding. So I think they're the biggest things. I mean, sexual harassment in the workplace is still incredibly prevalent.
Yeah.
And when you are getting such a low wage, you don't want to say anything. Not that you don't want to, you feel that you can't. And there has to be mechanisms in place where people feel that they can speak up.
Right.
And that is a huge issue. That, how can we make women feel that they can talk about the things that are happening to them? How do we create a safe environment, a safe harbor? And, and a lot of that, what's one of the biggest changes over the last 41 years too, has been contract work. That there aren't HR systems, or not systems, but HR divisions in many companies, that everything is outsourced. So if you feel that you want to say something, you will talk to a contract, a contractor, an employer that hires you through a contract company. Yep. You feel that if you rock the boat in some way, they're not going to hire you again. So that's one situation over the last 40 years, that's gotten really bad. And then the lack of unionization. That's also something, and that's what the original organization 9 to 5 was about. It was groups of women getting together, talking about their issues, and then on top of that, Karen Nussbaum creating a union for office workers that they felt like they had somewhere to go to talk about when something happened to them.
Yeah. Gary, do you have any comments on that? That was quite something.
Yeah, I mean, I've learned right along with Camille all of these things that the women are still going through. And like, you know, when we interviewed Jane, she said, it's worse today. We do need this sequel. We do need to show that the women still have nowhere to go. There's not even the structure in place to protect them, you know, much less back then. But even now, you would think that we would be going forward in the right direction, but we are not. And we've kind of learned that as we've been making this film and interviewing a lot of women from all kinds of work fields, you know, not just in the office, but everybody is going through similar situations.
Yeah. You know, I see those issues in play for sure. And, you know, most assistants are absolutely well above minimum wage, but far too many are still underpaid. And you're absolutely right, Camille, that when people are underpaid, they don't feel necessarily free to assert themselves. You know, they're single moms, et cetera. So, you know, we definitely have a mountain to climb here. But in terms of being optimistic, I think your film is certainly a bright spot that it's going to, you know, shining. Assistants know this. Assistants know that to shine a light on issues is the first step to solving them, right? We have to see what it is first. We have to see what the problem is. And I think social media, like the ability to do what we're doing right now, to live stream all over the world and to have people on our call from all over the world, you know, that's a really great thing because, you know, we're all working from the same information, which feels at least,
yeah, I think solidarity is something, and people communicating with each other and feeling like they're not the only one going through something.
Yes.
That there is other people that are experiencing the same things. And once people know that they're not alone, they realize that they have a voice. And once people have a voice, they then can create change. And if they have the security of other people with them, having the same ideas, they know that they can, you know, be a force to be reckoned with.
Exactly. And when, you know, what we see among the assistant community is when ideas are shared that are working in one company, you know, Tess Rodriguez is sharing an idea now. Jen, maybe you can put it up on the screen. Other assistants get to see, you know, Tess is in a global company in the US and they started to give this year 6 months paid maternity and 1 month paid paternity. The thing about that is that's happened in 2021. Like it took all the way till 2021 for that to happen. But, you know, on one hand, better late than never. And on the other hand, why did it take so long? And hopefully others who are hearing this, you know, some companies are doing it better than that. And some, you know, still have a ways to go. What do you think? Any thoughts on that?
I think it needs to be mandated. I mean, I know America and Australia have very different systems, but it needs to be government mandated. And I think that's the only way that, I mean, there's a lot of companies that are enacting those things. I mean, maternity leave and paternity leave. But I think until companies are sort of really forced to do it, a lot of them won't.
But then again, therein lies the problem, because you have all of these people at the top of the government, like Mitch McConnell and all of these people who shoot down everything. That's why we have gun reform that has not passed with all these mass shootings. We've just had 2 this week because they are in the NRA's pocket and they're not going to push these bills through. So it just shows you that these men who are at the top are obviously chauvinists against women. And that's why they don't care about the ERA and the 28th Amendment passing since 1982. It's been sitting there. So it just shows you that we have to have a change. But we have been getting more women into the government, into the Senate, into the House. You know, that those things are going to eventually help turn it. But
I would agree.
See it turn now.
Having more women in power in the boardrooms, at running government, running companies. So, Camille, as an Australian, do you feel that these issues will resonate in Australia? You know, you made the comment that, you know, we handle things a bit differently, but, you know, this documentary is not just for America, right? It's for the whole world.
It's for the whole world. And we do actually have a section in Britain. I mean, what's been really interesting, I think, in the last 2 or 3 months is that I think there was a certain arrogance in Australia, thinking that we had solved a lot because we did have a lot of government mandated rules and regulations in regards to, you know, maternity, paternity leave, equal pay. But sexual harassment is something that is pervasive in every society all around the world in most work environments. And if it's in the Prime Minister's office, which is our equivalent to the president, and that has come out, and basically in the White House, and it's come out that people had been sexually harassed and in one situation raped.
Yep.
If it's happening in those environments, it is happening everywhere.
Yeah.
And I think it's really called out to all women in Australia. I went to a march about 3 weeks ago, and we have a different, because we don't really have COVID in Australia, so we are allowed to march, and there were thousands and thousands and thousands of women that came out and said, this has been happening to us. We've experienced this in our lives. And the more that happens in regards to equal pay, in regards to sexual harassment, lack of job promotion or being looked over for jobs, you know, in situations where it's been very obvious that you were the most highly qualified for that job, but a man has gotten that job. These are the things that we all need to be communicating about. And as I said, once we keep communicating and we're talking about it, and we talk to our peers and also the people who are running the companies, then they know to take us all seriously.
Absolutely, Camille. You know, when I spend my life in rooms of mostly women all around the world, you know, since COVID virtually, but in most rooms, if I ask who has either witnessed or experienced sexual harassment, easily 75% of the room raises their hands. This is something women know very well.
Yeah.
And, you know, Gary, the whole Me Too Time's Up movement began in 2017 with the Weinstein case out of Hollywood. And so we've seen since then this series of accountability happening.
Yes.
Do you have a comment on that about, you know, being transparent and at least exposing the problem so that we can hold folks accountable?
Well, that's the thing is now, because of Me Too, people have no problem with saying they did that to me and giving the accountability and putting their name out there and putting them on blast. And even tying back to the documentary, we kind of show how in 2009, when the musical first came out, it wasn't as successful because people had that thinking that, oh, that's already been handled. That was a time back then and it has been handled. But since Me Too happened, and now on the West End, 2019, they opened the 9 to 5 musical again. They restructured it, but people's minds had changed since Me Too to see how he was harassing Dora Lee and to know that even though that happened back then, it's still happening right now. So we kind of show that contrast. It didn't make it on Broadway, but it made it on the West End because people's minds changed.
Yeah. Can one of you share with us how our audience who's chomping at the bit to know how they're going to see this whole documentary? What's the future? Can you give us a peek into what they can expect, or when should they look for it?
Camille?
No.
I'll do it. Okay. We're doing the final touches on the editing. We're going to submit for the Toronto Film Festival in May, and the festival will be in September. So we're hoping to have our festival premiere in Toronto in the late fall. And then we're hoping to have a Netflix sale. We've had interest from Hulu and another couple of outlets. So we're just waiting to see where we're going to land, but we will have a big streaming platform as well.
Well, you can count on me and our listeners to promote it from the hilltops. And Jen has put some links in the chat about how you can follow the social media on Instagram and Facebook and other platforms. Gary, help me.
Yes, we have the Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter are all at Still Working 9 to 5, 9TO5.
Fantastic. Well, any final comments before we wrap up for today?
Camille, I got one. I I just want to apologize because I couldn't get my laptop working, so I'm doing this on my cell phone, and my mom is called twice, so I apologize to the whole audience. Okay.
Doesn't Mom know? Sandy Knott from Boston say we're holding our breath for this movie. Oh, we so need it. We so need it. Camille, what do you have to say?
I was reading, I think Marion's comment saying it's still a white man's world. You know, I think yes, you're correct, but we're hoping that it's going to change. You know, there are a lot more people getting into diverse backgrounds, getting into positions of power, also being nominated and you know, on the Senate and the House. So yes, you're right at the moment, but there is small changes happening. And I know one day we will all, you know, maybe not in I have to say, probably not in the next 10, 15 years, but we will see change, and it will happen, hopefully. And yes, so she's saying a long time to wait, but yeah.
I am choosing to agree with you. I look around and I see all of this attention being paid to diversity and inclusion and equity. And, you know, I spend a lot of time supporting women to negotiate, to know how to ask for more money. You know, we know you don't get if you don't ask. And the economics of it impact the way women are going to move forward in the world. So anybody who's on this call has heard from me to say that we in the workplace need to speak up.
Yes.
With our leaders, in collaboration with our leaders. Marion wants to host a screening.
Okay. Thanks, Marion.
We need to work in collaboration with our leaders, with men. Women need to work right along with men. I call you a man-ambassador, Gary. You know, men who love to support and empower women because it makes sense. It's not only the right thing to do, but it makes so much sense. It's not going to work it's not men versus women. This is women and men working together so that our families could be stronger in the end too. So Camille and Gary, thank you so much for this work you're doing. So important on this documentary. Look for it. Still working 9 to 5. It's not funny anymore. It's coming. And in the meantime, we need to speak up about the issues that matter to both women and men. Thank you for being here. Please visit.
Thank you so much, Bonnie.
So welcome.
Thank you, everybody, for listening.
Go to betheultimateassistant.com for all the latest news. And we will see you next week with Libby Moore, the former chief of staff to Oprah Winfrey. And she's going to help us wrap up Women's History Month. See you next week.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Bonnie.
Thank you, Bonnie.
Bye.
You're so welcome. Mwah. Thank you.